Welcome to another episode. What's your story with Mike Lindstrom, my man Scott Leese? Hope you enjoyed our last episode. John J. Van Ness, big hit. A lot of social media buzz from our last episode. Here it is, episode 20. Nick Lowery, any NFL fans out there, athletes? Nick Lowery, NFL kicker, Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame kicker, three-time Pro Bowl, 18-year career in the NFL. When he retired, he was number one in field goal percentage, which if you've ever watched a big game, that's a big deal. I've always been fascinated with the life of kickers. So 80%, that's pretty amazing, going out there and kicking 80% of the time and succeeding. But I'm really pumped about bringing Nick on our couch and talking about the things he's done since he retired from the NFL. There's too many charities to count. I know the one that I've seen up close and personal, Champions for the Homeless. They did 73 plus events already in the last couple decades. I actually took my sons there for this past Thanksgiving and fed the homeless. And it was awesome. Just a very touching thing. And to watch Nick interact with the community. And the guy has no fear whatsoever. I mean, going out there and handing out roses and food and clothes on the streets. You know, these are, hard streets of the winter, and no bodyguards, nothing. He is just such a character and such a man of integrity. And I really love what Nick's done for not only the Phoenix community, but at large, being a very big voice in the NFL. So excited to have Nick Lowery on episode 20. Enjoy. Oh boy, welcome to the next episode. What's your story? This is Mike Lindstrom. This is Scott Leese, my man, coming in from Austin, Texas, filming in Scottsdale, Arizona. We got a legend in the house.
NFL legend.
Yeah, NFL legend, Nick Lowery, longtime friend, local Scottsdale. He's going to tell us some stories, not just about football, philanthropy, what he's doing in the community, history, family. He's got so many things we're going to talk about. So if you're starting off here, don't think this is just about sports. I can promise you this guy's got a lot more depth than just football. So my friend Nick Lowery, thank you for being on the show.
I'm honored to be here. This is fun. We're going to have fun. In fact, we're going to try to shock some of you too.
Oh boy. So the first question we always ask, take it where you want, before we get into the really fun, deep stuff, is a little bit biographical. Tell us your story.
Well, it's a different kind of story. I'll let you decide. But, my mother was in the first full class of women at Oxford. She grew up in Cairo, Egypt. Her first 13 years, her dad helped found the Bank of Egypt. He was killed in a plane crash when she was 14. She's back in England and goes to Oxford. She becomes probably the most fluent person in German in the United Kingdom, and that became very important in World War II. My dad was from a family of cowboys in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Colorado, Livermore, Colorado, and a very different match. But at that point, he had succeeded in being a reconnaissance pilot in World War II for General Patton and Third Army in Germany the last 6 months of the war, where we had to close this deal. And he's flying not in a big bomber. He's flying in a tiny Piper Cub with no armor. He'd lost several of his colleagues because they're flying right over enemy lines in Germany, and the big shells are coming in, and they're so big that these tiny little Piper Cubs were going like that, and two of them were hit, and he just had to be able to land on a tiny hillside in 100 yards, talk to the brass, find out where to go, and a brave man, and he was a very humble man. I just so honored to have had parents like this. And after the war, he thought, I want to do something with this, because intelligence, if you don't think about history, we are not guaranteed what's going to happen in the next 30 years, but we certainly were not guaranteed in World War II that the Germans and the Japanese weren't going to win. And intelligence became important. So my dad goes to Stanford, gets in on the GI Bill, studies Russian, becomes an expert on Russia and Eastern Europe. He applies to be in the first full class of Fulbright Scholars in London, because the Fulbright Scholars program was this vision of Britain and the United States cooperating, and in the so-called free world that was manifesting after World War II. And so 100 of the best scholars came from England to the United States, and 100 of the best scholars from the United States came to England. Daniel Patrick Moynihan and some really amazing people were part of that. Daniel Patrick Moynihan was a senator. He was under Reagan, he was the UN ambassador. But my father met this beautiful young lady, graduate of Oxford, who was helping run the first Fulbright Scholars Program in London with a guy named Alan Pfeiffer, who would go on to run the Carnegie Mellon Foundation and was really one of the big authors of the vision of public education in this country in the 50s. Unfortunately, that vision's the same now. We got to change it and update it after 70, 80 years. So my dad worked with Arnold Toynbee when he was writing for his Fulbright Scholarship on the current histories of Eastern Europe and Russia. So he would write about Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, etc. And he worked with somebody that a lot of people haven't heard of, but Arnold Toynbee, Toynbee, was literally the greatest historian of the 20th century, bar none. He wrote a tiny little work called A Study of History from 1932 to 1962, 14 volumes. And he looked at the 21 great civilizations. He was kind of the, and this is not really hyperbole, the Einstein of history, because he looked in detail on all the great civilizations and their rise and their fall. And he came up with a theory called challenge and response. And in the book that I'm writing, and almost done, life is, for all of us, challenge and response. We get challenged with adversity. We have lots of challenges right now. Venezuela, let's go with Iran, let's go with Minnesota. All these things going on. How do we take challenges, resolve differences, and be better for it? And so that was my father's influence. Arnold Toynbee, working with him very closely, became godfather to my brothers. And actually, after coming back to Europe, when my dad was now in the CIA, I was born in Germany. My dad was working in the, I got so much stuff to tell you guys. My dad was working in the CIA building in Munich, and that was actually the old Bayer building. Bayer manufactured the gas for the gas chambers. So all of these really serious echoes with his experience. And then we went back to the States, and the CIA was moved from next to near where the Kennedy Center is and near where the State Department out to McLean, Virginia. That's where it is now. So we moved to McLean, Virginia, and our next door neighbor, this is how life gets sometimes, is Byron Whizzer White. Byron Whizzer White had just been approved as a Supreme Court justice. It just happened to have led the NFL in rushing. Supreme Court justice led the NFL in rushing for Pittsburgh. And before that, actually for Pittsburgh first, then the Detroit Lions. And that's my next door neighbor. And the second day we're there on Hampshire Road, they're at 6801 Hampshire Road. We're at 6803. It's a new, nice neighborhood. There's Bobby Kennedy in the front yard with really thick red hair and his dog. He'd walked over 5 miles from Hickory Hill where the Kennedys lived, where the Bobby Kennedy lived, not far from the CIA, and welcomed his friend, who'd been a Rhodes Scholar in England when the Kennedys' father, Joseph Kennedy Sr., was ambassador to England. So they'd become friends, and he was very close friends with John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, and helped lead the marshals into Selma, Alabama to protect the marchers during the civil rights marches. So, I mean,
it's a little different than the street I grew up on.
No, a little bit.
Yeah, so yeah. I have been spoiled, and that phrase is so true. Too much is given, much is expected, and that's how I lead my life now. I really believe that torch that was given by John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy to do good things, to ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That is a torch that still burns, and we better keep lighting it, because we are the leaders of the free world, and we've got to make good choices. We've got to be strong, but we also have to not lose that empathy and compassion. Yeah. So that's where I grew up. Wow. Went to Dartmouth College. Went to St. Albans School by the Cathedral with a classmate of Neil Bush and Marvin Bush, sons of H.W. Bush, and then played at Dartmouth in baseball and football, and had trouble making it. And a lot of the story for me, speaking of challenge and response, is great mentors that kept me going when I was being rejected by 8 NFL teams 11 times. And what did I learn? How did I dig deeper? Because I was a place kicker, and that is another analogy for me, because the place kicker, like a lot of us, is the individual on the sidelines of life, and they're big moments, and we better be ready for them. We don't know where they're going to come, and then you have to be out there in the middle of the field. Everybody's watching, so that's why the book is called Naked and Alone with 80,000 people, because that's the way it feels. You're right there, and everybody's going to not only see you make it, they will never forget when you miss. So being a leader, you got to be able to handle the fact that the times you do, hopefully few times you screw up, you're going to get criticized. But that's what you sign up for, to be somebody that makes the world a better place. So I end up trying out all those times, played with the Patriots. We beat and I'm rooting for the Patriots at the Super Bowl because of that. We beat the Oakland Raiders on national TV on Sunday night. And then we beat San Diego in New England. Then they cut me. And that was part of that process. But anyway, I end up thinking it's over, getting a job with Senator Bob Packwood of Oregon, who is the minority chairman, if you will, of the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, working on aviation deregulation and safety. And I get this call out of the blue from the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's Jim Schaaf, never heard of him. He said, we'd like to sign you. And I'm like, nah, thanks, but maybe another time. I got this great job. Hang up. And I want to share this for those of you that have those moments, and may happen many times now, where I hung up and thought immediately, oops, I don't have his phone number. What did he want? And I called my mentor. And so that emphasizes how important it is to have a mentor. And he said, you'll always wonder, well, now how do I find him? It's 1980.
Yeah, it's not like there's caller ID.
Yeah. There's no caller ID. I just
can't text anybody.
No star 69 either.
Yeah.
I just guessed that his name was spelled James Schaaf. Two James Schaafs in the directory with the operator in Kansas City. Wasn't it the first one? Then I thought he just said that he just had back surgery. Maybe he's still in the hospital. And the operator said, I can't do. Oh, well, try that. Try this number. Wasn't there. I said, well, where would he be with back surgery? And boom, 1 hour after hanging up with this guy, reasonably politely, I find him. And it blew him away that I could find him. We talked for an hour, and I thought maybe God wants me to try one more time.
Wow.
So then all I had to do was beat out the greatest kicker in the history of the game, who became the first kicker in the Hall of Fame, Jan Stenerud.
Yeah.
But I'd admired him. But it's a funny thing, when you keep going and you keep going, like my friend Sharon Lecter would say, right? 3 feet from gold. Man, don't stop. Don't stop. And I felt like I'd earned it, and I didn't feel any guilt kicking his butt head to head. Clark Hunt, the current owner of the Chiefs, who was just on the NFL Network yesterday, who's supervising, 9 years of division championships. And he was a 16-year-old ball boy charting us every day, every single kick. And then I make it. And that's, nobody likes me because I've beaten out the father figure, and the Jan Stenerud was a star in the Super Bowl, the one Super Bowl that they were holding on to like a candle. And I go on to become the most accurate kicker in NFL history. And I worked about half of my off seasons in Washington for the chairman of the House Rules Committee, for Tom Eagleton, for Richard Bolling, for Elizabeth Dole in the Department of Transportation. And then I worked in the Reagan administration. This is always like February, March, April, because we didn't make it in the playoffs. So I got one more month that normally a playoff team wouldn't get. And February, March, April, May. And then I'd go back. I'd train. In the morning, I'd ride the bike for like 40 minutes. I'd do some stomach work. Then I'd go to the YMCA, go to work at the White House. Then I worked in drug abuse policy for Reagan and work out at the YMCA. And then I'd come back, work till about 6. Then I'd go kick if it was enough light, and weightlifting at the YMCA. And so finally in June, I'd drive back and get ready for training camp. But it worked out pretty well. I ended up being on 7 All-Pro teams and kicked the game-winning field goal in 3 Pro Bowls. Just so many great teaching lessons and things I'm really proud of. But frankly, Mike, I'm just as freaking proud of my life now because I get to do good things, and we are definitely needing leadership. And I'm not running for office, but I am running for that vision that the Kennedys gave us that we were so desperately and tragically deprived of the best America, what America could be.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a battle ahead.
Got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of work to do. I got to go ask you, how did the kicking? That's back then. I mean, nowadays you got camps and social media. Everyone wanted to like be, a quarterback or whatever. Kicking was like not the thing. How did you get to become kicking is going to be the thing? How'd that happen?
Well, I was actually equally likely to be a pitcher in pro baseball. I had an earned run average of 0.37 and 0.78, my junior and senior league champion in high school, and 1.0 as a freshman in college. But I'll just leave it, I had an idiot coach. And we got to learn to know when there's somebody who doesn't really want us to be successful and divorce ourselves of that bad energy and make sure we attract the good energy. And it just made me focus more on football. And I'd played soccer in England. When England won the World Cup, I'm playing soccer every day and playing some rugby. And I just had this gift to kick. I was about a foot taller than most of those British kids. And but what I loved about pitching and kicking is you better be mentally tough. You got to be able to be on an island where nobody's there to cheer for you. You could be at Oakland Stadium or New England Stadium or Buffalo or New York. They are singing sweet soliloquies to you. And I'm not talking about Shakespeare, but, more about your mama and your daddy.
Yeah.
And being able to focus on what you have to do, create that office in the middle of the field mentally, and learn to be freaking tough and ready, learn to train hard. But those are great lessons in life, I think.
What did you do to work on the mental side of the game?
Well, I'd go into a scream room and I'd go, no. I actually, in training camp, I would read a book on confidence, and
The same one every time or a different one?
same one every time.
What was the book?
It's called Confidence.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, I don't even remember. at
Yeah,
this
I'll
point.
I'll
It's way
find
back.
out.
That's
We'll
how
find
I got
out.
my. That's how I got my start back in
find
the
out.
80 to about 85, 86. But then it was visualizing every single situation, the score, making practice as much what I call healthy pressure, so you're not neurotic, but you've got to be ready for the conditions, for everything. And I would literally write down before the game, this field goal from here, this field goal from here, walk out. And those things became habits. And then, of course, you miss some. I missed one against Buffalo, and I remember waking up at like 3 a.m., dreaming the ball through, go through, hook left, so you're haunted by those misses, but they also become, if you let them, good motivation to not let them happen again. And that's all we can do. Learn, get better, not beat us up too much.
That phrase, create an office in the middle of the field, I've never heard that term. Is that something you use? Is that
I
a
did.
kicker term
Yeah.
or is that a you
I
term?
realized I had a moment of clarity where, imagine a bigger version of this rectangular rug from eight yards back behind the line of scrimmage to where the ball's going to be put down. I marked back 4 yards back, 3 big steps, and 2 steps over, maybe 4 by 3. And that was my office. And I said to myself, if I can control everything in here, forgive me, but screw everybody else. They ain't helping. They ain't on my side.
Yeah.
I'm going to get this done. And you create some of your own mental Fort Knox, and then you've got to create mechanisms to just attack the ball. Try not to be too perfect because the brain reacts much better when it's not self-conscious. So you have to create, your own ways. Everybody has their own to attack, to be aggressive. Not try to kill it like in golf, not trying to hit a 300-yarder, but just a nice, solid, sweet swing, attack it. Don't be too perfect.
I've never heard that. Never heard that.
You used to kick barefoot?
No, barefoot I could do, but it hurt.
Yeah.
And I actually coached a guy named Paul McFadden who went on to kick for Philadelphia and the Giants. And we're playing the Giants, and there's Paul in pregame. He's their kicker. And I looked at his right foot, barefoot, and it was really cold. And he had a dried blood from his ankle all the way down to his big toe. And I'm going, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I was not a...
I never understood
Why?
why they
either.
did that. What was the logic
Touch.
amongst
So
kickers?
you get more touch, more feel, more direct sort of immediate impression, and maybe a tiny bit more accuracy. Although what I would do is I have 11 and a half feet. I would wear a 9.5 shoe made of kangaroo.
Just
very tight with 3 to 4 pairs of thick socks, so that there's an air pocket about this thick that you need to fill up. Otherwise, you're going to kick the ground first. It's like hitting 2 inches behind the ball in golf, and suddenly your speed going through the ball is not as solid, and the ball doesn't go as far.
Speaking of the ball going far, what do you make of all these kickers now who seem to routinely
You guys,
60 to 70 yards?
Thank you.
So here's my theory. Well, he has his coffee. First of all, they changed the balls, so they have kicking balls now.
Okay.
Right. Second of all, almost everybody, it seems to come from like a soccer background now, which I don't think that they did before. So I think people just maybe train a little bit harder, longer, stronger.
I think
Tell me I'm wrong.
There's more people that know how to train. The technologies to train are much better. I used to do squats with,
Yeah, then you have a Bud Light and a Marlboro and
I played 18 years, but I might have played longer. But the biggest thing is the balls not only are kicking balls, but the rule now is you can have those balls in practice for 3 weeks. So if you ever remember, you guys are way too young, but Russell Erksleben, Tony Little, and what was the other guy's name? Steve Little and Tony Franklin. They were kicking in the Texas Southwest Conference for Texas and A&M, and those teams, they were hitting 65-yard field goals, et cetera. Well, they were using practice balls. So here's your science. Sports science, that guy I knew unfortunately passed away, but sports science helps you understand it better. The foot actually connects. I hope you're not bored out there. The foot actually connects with the ball for 4,000th of a second. That's all the time that swing and that power, your hips coming through, and the hard bone of the foot here hits the ball. If the ball's broken in, as opposed to a new ball, the new ball had all this chemical on it. I was talking to Steve Fuller, my first holder, a few days ago, and he was a good old boy from Clemson. He'd go, my hands would be like orange because it had that chemical on it. And those new balls are extra hard when it's cold. If they're broken in, and they've been broken in now for about 10 years. So imagine being broken in, then being also allowed to use it in practice. Yeah. That adds maybe 0.005 of a second. 0.005 of a second. That's nothing. That's 12.5% more power. That's 8 to 9 yards more power. Mm-hmm. And I had 3 of the 5 longest in NFL history, but who's counting? In 1985, I had a 57-yarder halfway up the net against Seattle. I have one with O.J. Simpson announcing on a Thursday night game in 1985, 58-yarder halfway up the net. And if you Google Nick Lowery 5 field goals Raiders, it's a 1-minute thing, and O.J. Simpson's doing the sideline, and Frank Gifford's announcing. And O.J. Simpson goes, "That looks like it could have gone 70 yards."
I've seen it. It's legit. It's good.
And then I had a 58-yarder, actually the year before against the Super Bowl champion Redskins, my home team when I grew up, which was the longest field goal ever in RFK Stadium, still is, and was the longest field goal ever in the first quarter of a game. And that was without broken in balls. So I can imagine I probably could have.
It's pretty crazy because if anybody gets near midfield-ish with some of the kickers now,
anymore,
all of a sudden you're in range.
And the announcers and the kickers are better. I'm not saying they're not better. They're just not that much better. Like I would be very confident I could have done it.
Yeah.
But the fields are like
better,
beautiful fairways.
Kick off
beautiful greens on golf.
Like,
in Oakland, you had to kick off dirt.
Yeah.
And then then 18 dome stadiums versus 3 or 4 back then.
Yeah.
My opening game, the week before that game against the Raiders, were in New Orleans in their dome. And I hit a 52-yarder over the net, 48-yarder halfway top of the net, 52-yarder over the net, and a 36-yarder in the first 20 minutes of the game. And it was indoors. Everything's perfect, flat field, no wind. I wish I'd played indoors like Morton Anderson.
Yeah, he had a big career. He had a long career.
He had a great career.
Just real quick on football before we get to life stuff. I want to hear about all the projects you're working. Yeah, you're working on a lot. Favorite kickers in the modern day? Well,
it's really sad. Harrison Butker's a friend of mine. Yeah. I love him to death. And he had a so-called bad year, and he hit 32 out of 36.
Jeez.
and hit a 59-yarder and one run-on field goal, but he just missed like 3 or 4 extra points, which are now a lot harder. I was 562 or 568 when they were 20-yard field goals, but the 33-yard field goals are a more significant challenge.
Yeah.
Who else? The Boswell's really good. The kicker for Buffalo, Prater's good.
41 years old.
Aubrey for Dallas is really good.
Aubrey is pretty
yeah,
good.
They're like 5 or 6 that are all really good. I have to give a lot of credit to Harrison because he hit the big field goals in the Super Bowl, in the AFC Championship game several times, in playoff games where they were not easy kicks, and he would make them.
So how close are you with the Chiefs? I mean, you're supporting everything they do. You see games. I mean, you not miss playoff games. I mean,
I'm a minority.
The Hunt family. You know the Hunt family. I mean,
yep. I was actually at Clark's wedding. He was dating Tavia, who was close friends with my then girlfriend Heather, way back in '93. So yeah, I'm part owner of a tequila company, El Bandito Yankee Tequila. It's really good. Yep. And we have a suite there, so that gives me other reasons to go. And we have alumni week, so it's nice to maintain those connections. It's a lot, I think, like some reunions where the people that feel good about themselves come back, and the other people that don't come. And former players, the injuries they have. I've got 5 joint replacements, and I was a kicker.
Yeah.
So the ones that got banged up all the time, they're going through daily pain. And I think a lot of people have become a bit more aware of it, but it's a real thing. Mike Webster was a teammate for 2 years. He was the one featured in the movie Concussion.
Steelers,
We've done a lot of work with concussion issues and brain issues with Lee Steinberg.
Who's your favorite player to play with? Like one that stood out to you on your team?
Well, Derek Thomas was a great personality and one of the great players. And Christian Okoye, Steve DeBerg, who was our quarterback for a while and was one of the funniest guys ever. Danny Salamua was really, really funny. A lot of personalities. Gary Green, who was our 5-time Pro Bowler. And these are guys that were enduring the years when the Chiefs weren't winning a whole lot. So
it seems like you guys have I have a lot of NFL buddies that do alumni stuff. And it seems like you guys as an organization are close. Like you guys do a lot of stuff together. One of my buddies, it wasn't until recently, the Seahawks, he's a former Seahawk. He said like 7-8 years ago, he'd go to these alumni events, sporadic, and they started winning. And it was like they were like rain or shine. You guys seem like you guys have been together. You talk about it.
It's such a simple thing to me. They call it the 12th man with Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Well, they should do that for the players too. Denver does a good job. The Raiders do a wonderful job taking care of their former players. My friend Pete Koch played just barely a year and was injured, I think, his second year with them, played with us for 4 years. And I will give Mark Davis credit. He takes care of the guys there. But a lot of teams, it's kind of ho-hum. And I think the average salary in 1987 was $215,000. It's now pretty much $5 million.
Yeah.
And yet the pension, right to your congressman, the pension is only 50% bigger than 1988, 87. Salaries have gone up 2,300%. So the increase in the pension is 2%, maybe 3% of the increase in salaries, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
it should be paralleling that.
Absolutely.
So that becomes a thing where we all have, as we get older, expenses with
Big time.
our health care.
That's a big one. That's the big one I was thinking about.
Yep.
So where in your childhood, this love for humanity, and I love watching you do what you do. I was an honor to be at your Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
It was awesome watching you.
Thanks for
be
coming.
around. No, it's incredible. I mean, my sons, I told them the week before, they knew who you were. And I said, we're doing this. And that's not our typical Thanksgiving pattern. They like to sleep and play video games or whatever, teenagers. I said, no, guys, we're going. It's just no ifs, ands, or buts. They do go to Brophy. So the Jesuits, they always do stuff for the community. They know they'd been there before with the Brophy projects that they have to do for school.
Right.
I said, this is not have to do for school. We're doing this for me and my friends in the community. And they loved it. We were doing the
Did they know they were going to love it when they came?
They had done stuff at Brophy, but this was a little different, man. To your point, when you walked out the gate, because I was making sandwiches for the first 45 minutes, right? PBJs, putting everything in the back. So then and then handing out flowers became the thing.
Right.
I wanted to go out like what you did, because I hadn't done that. And you're out there, man. You see a line, and there's people that are upset. There's people that are cutting the line. I mean, there's order to it, obviously, but there's people that are they're struggling, man, and you just feel the pain and what you're doing to bring people. Yeah, you had Mark Kerr there. You had former NFL guys there.
Mark Kerr was the first great MMA fighter, and he's featured by a guy no one's heard of called The Rock.
Yeah.
In this amazing movie called The Smashing Machine, and we were interviewed by. I pulled him in, and we did an interview with NBC.
Yeah, he was the local guy. He was there,
and we were both saying. He said, here's this massive guy. He goes, the belts are great. And I was saying the Super Bowl rings are great. The trophies are great. But if you lose that connection with people,
yeah,
then you've lost everything.
Yeah.
As you get older, you see how important that is. And all these people that are successful and that commit suicide or sabotage themselves because they're like, I'm at the top of the mountain, but I'm alone. It's not any better up here.
Yeah.
And so that's the work you got to do. When you do goal setting, make sure your goals are, how will I feel up there? And I will share my success with everybody that's made a difference in my life. My parents, my best friends, whoever. And that's what makes it rich. And that first time I kicked a game-winning field goal, Steve Largent was holding. Dan Fouts was our quarterback. Jack Lambert was on the sidelines. He comes up to me. It's 13-all, 1982. There was football back then. There was air. There was water. So all those things. And Jack Lambert was part of the Steel Curtain, one of the great linebackers, great defenses ever. And he's got no teeth at that point. And he goes, son, I guess I had a baby face. He goes, we make $5,000 if you make this kick, $2,500 if you don't. Make this kick or I'll rip your fucking head.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
That's great. That's real. I mean, that money is real. That's real. That's not a lot of money back. I mean, back then
my salary was $30,000.
It mattered back then.
Yeah. But I was so grateful to make it finally. And that's the other thing is, what do you do? Staying grateful feeds you. And I feel so grateful that I can connect with people like you guys and Mark Kerr and all the wonderful people.
Scott Passmore came down, by the way, that day.
Even Scott Passmore. Even happy that Scott Passmore. No, he's a great friend. And Richard Stein, who's a phenomenal sports anchor for Fox. And what we've done is we put a human face on the homeless. It's called Champions for the Homeless. Look up championsforthehomeless.org. But we've done it for 76 times over 20 years. Our next one's on Easter. And, when people feel like you see them, they're not. What happens when you're homeless is everything's mercenary. Hey, kid. Hey, buddy. Here's your sandwich. Here's your coffee. Here's your whatever. And there's not that personal connection. And when you're treated like furniture on the street, it's pretty rough. Pretty rough for one day. Pretty rough for a week. But when you're on the street for 6 months and a year and whatever, and you've been assaulted in every sense of the word, what I call situational mental illness happens.
Yeah.
Where you don't know who to trust. And the stat I was sharing is, over the last 3 years, 1 million members of the Phoenix community have been evicted. 1 million over the last 3 years. And that's not me. That's a statistic from St. Vincent de Paul. That's 20% of the population of Phoenix. So, a lot of people doing well. But I think if you keep that sense of gratitude through all the stuff we have to work through that's not fun, it's amazing how it ends up being a beautiful thing, and helping people feel like you see them is the most beautiful thing of all.
What is your purpose and why? Is that pretty much tied to that? A lot of the humanity things you do?
I think just do the things that you'll never regret. When you look back on you're on your deathbed, you're going, man, I'm so glad I had this time, met so many great people. And I don't mind working hard. I worked hard. I went to Harvard. I made it through that, did okay. But once again, that ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. The Kennedy vision of Camelot, the idea has how good can we be, is a very different question than what's being asked now. So I love that. And so I get to do lots of fun things and meet lots of great people. To me, it's very simple. Surround yourself with people that you love and that love you, and do the things you love.
Yeah. What was the biggest failure or setback in your life that you learned from ever?
Well, having to leave Kansas City was tough. That was the first year of free agency. And ironically, I'd fought for free agency as a player rep. But free agency also came with it with a salary cap, which is very responsible for the league, which is supposedly a nonprofit. And you got to laugh at that one.
Yeah, we are.
But, I felt like I had to go because of some falsehoods that were played to me, and I really never wanted to leave. And I've come back to Kansas City and said if I had to, I wouldn't have left. But that was really tough. I went to the Jets for 3 years. And
that's tough for anybody.
And it was tough for us. My last 2 years with the Jets, we were 3-13 and 1-15.
Oh.
Wow.
And once again, God writes the scripts, we don't. And it's God's timing. If you work hard, it'll happen and it'll make sense. But it may well happen when you least expect it. But it teaches you stuff, and I've been able to been chairman of the American Indian Education Foundation, founded Native Vision, all these programs. To me, all right, here's my speech. You can find something that you're willing to commit to for 20 years. Champions for the Homeless is now about to be 20 years. Native Vision, which we started in Chinle with Johns Hopkins, and I got the NFL Players Association involved, that's now in its 30th year. It was on Oprah as the best new program for Native youth. If you get that habit that I would do that, you never regret it because you have a legacy that's so real. It's what Harvard would call social capital. You've left something that was an intention, was a dream. You made it real for 20 years, and that's when you can end really generational curses. And there are a lot of people we know in life, whether it's a form of addiction or abuse or just poverty, whatever, where they live in a form of generational curse. And they're just struggling to break through it.
Yeah.
And if you really want to leave a legacy, stick with find something you love enough that you'd say, I'm not gonna give up after 10 years. I'm gonna stick with it and see how profound your impact can be.
It's interesting to think about the activity or job or whatever in a 20-year arc.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody say that to me.
Especially
think about it in a 20-year arc. Yeah. In my world, in
5
tech
years
and everything, I would argue that it's 2.5 is normal.
A job, you know what I mean? Like you're not gonna...
I come from tech and sales and stuff like that, and the average VP of sales tenure is like 15 months.
Isn't that insane?
15 months.
Yeah.
I mean,
basically get 1 year to make it happen, and a little bit if you've hung on there, and then you're out. If not, it's a real quick trigger. So you look at your career as like, if I'm lucky, I'll be someplace 4 or 5 years at a time, and maybe like 10 times. That's 40 years. That's my career.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, that's your
very
job.
Different. Yeah.
But maybe you can choose
a different
what
passion.
your non-job is.
Yeah.
That can parallel that and then maybe even take over from that.
Right.
Because what happens, I think, is, just like anything, I was pretty good as a kicker from the beginning, but I got a lot better. And I always work to get better. And, I believe in Jesus. I believe that I've got a purpose. And I believe that I'm going to be fed intuition at a different level of insight into people.
Yeah.
And coming from a narcissistic sports environment, which is with social media, the most narcissistic thing you can do, learning to transcend that and get past that. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of athletes today that do get that. Travis Kelce, wonderful person. Patrick Mahomes, the real deal. These guys get it, and they did it from the beginning. And guess what? They also had long, great careers. And hopefully Patrick's going to come back and play another 10 years for us if we get an offensive line.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
But doing those things, that balances you out. Like I started with cerebral palsy, Kick with Nick for cerebral palsy. My aunt had cerebral palsy. But growing up in the 30s and the 20s when people with cerebral palsy were kind of hidden in closets. Her parents, my grandparents, treated her as normal as they could. She got her college degree. She became a librarian for the University of Utah. She became a professional writer. And I just thought, that's somebody I want to honor. And then suddenly you're complaining about the hole in your sock in the locker room. And then you go down to United Cerebral Palsy and there's a kid who's just learned how to tie their shoe. And they are so excited. You're like, man.
Perspective.
Yeah. And there's a lot of arguments that being able to develop good perspective, not comparison, but perspective, is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So if I had you as a guest, which I very well may do, I do a young professionals training program online for like 22 to 28-year-olds about life skills. This could be anything: how to get a business card, how to talk to people, how to follow up, how to communicate. What would be a couple of things that you would impart to that group, a young 20 professionals that maybe you see from your vantage point that you're seeing that's not happening there if you were to coach them?
Well, I went back to Harvard after I finished, and then I had a third year after I got to my master's, which was a fellowship where I developed a leadership program for Native youth. And these are anywhere from 14 to 20-year-olds. So it's not the exact same age, but they're all trying to figure out who they are, and you're wanting to help them realize the answers are inside. It's not out there when they're coming from a deprived environment, especially. So I always say creativity is a cousin, a close cousin of spiritual health, and you need to manage that. And creativity is a godly thing. It's a powerful thing to come up with new solutions. I was watching an interview with the CEO of NVIDIA. He was asked, what's real intelligence? And he said, it's not really software. It's not all these things you might expect, problem solving. It's the intuitive ability to anticipate and see what's around the corner that other people can't before it becomes a problem. And it's a little bit like, I guess, preventative medicine. You know, the insurance companies don't want to pay for it, but in the end, being able to avoid major issues before they even happen, that will make you somebody that the people interviewing you will want to employ, because you're not only helping the CEO and the other people you're working with on what are the problems today, you're helping push it down a better current and away from stuff that's happening. I mean, and businesses are always dealing with unpredictable things. I would say that. I'd say being self-aware of your weaknesses. We did a DISC behavioral thing.
Love that.
And I think
we love it,
a DISC behavioral thing, you're divided into one of 4 categories. And for me, I was a DI.
Not surprised by that. I'm not surprised at all.
Strong personality.
A lot of DIs here.
And, look, creativity, but also you got to learn to shut the you-know-what up, right? And learn to listen better. So if you learn that at 15 or even 20, and then suddenly you get promoted to a senior vice president position, you have a better shot of not screwing yourself up and doing a bad job, because you know where your weakness is, so you default and say, well, am I listening enough? Or the other side is Rick St. Germain, who is a Harvard professor that was my co-teacher, wonderful, from the Lakota Ojibwe tribe, was a Harvard professor. He was really shy, and I didn't know that, because he'd learned that lesson because he had been tribal chairman at 27. Then he'd lost the tribal election, the next one, and he thought everybody knew what he was doing, and he had such good ideas, but he hadn't made sure everybody knew what he was thinking. And so he had defaulted. He had this new default thing. Am I making sure everybody knows what I'm thinking? And he became, he won several awards as the best teacher in Indian country. Rick St. Germain, wherever you are, I love you, Rick. And, what happens with a lot of leaders, including presidents, they don't realize when they get in that position. I worked for H.W. Bush to launch the Points of Life Foundation, and then for Clinton on AmeriCorps, and that was after working with Reagan's people on drug abuse policy. But even a president will get in place and not realize not so much what he can do, but what he can't. There's so many things a president can't do. Yeah. And that's probably what Trump's trying to help people understand, is a lot of things you can't do, and maybe some of that we can change. But that's not a political statement. It's just, as a leader, if you know what you can't do you're really ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Because then you can help people manage and make sure you surround yourself with the people that can do the things you can't do.
Yeah.
And you manage expectations. I'd say 80% of leadership is managing expectations of what you can do and helping others understand that. And of course, the most important thing of all is resilience and persistence. Just freaking
Great
keep
advice.
going, keep going, keep going. You know, you may be incredibly awkward at first or slightly awkward, but you'll be awkward, but just keep going. And there's only one direction you're going to go, is to be more and more in command of those skill sets.
Now, that was interesting in that the CEO's question in NVIDIA, that it said they asked him specifically, who's the smartest guy or people? He wanted a person. He's trying to get a person.
Right.
Who's the smartest person you've ever met or worked with? And he wouldn't answer the question. He tried to press him, like, come on, you worked with all these very smart people. And he did not give an answer. He gave an answer in a different way, saying, let me explain what I see smart and intelligence to be. And it was a good answer. At first, I like guys to answer the question. I'm like, come on, give me someone.
Yeah.
Is it Elon? Is it who is it? He wasn't going to answer the question, but he has a different belief about that coming from his viewpoint. And I can see where he might have an engineer on his team that sees something different, or a person he's met in investing that sees something different. So his world of intelligence or smart is completely different than maybe the perspective you and I grew up with, because you had a high SAT or because you had a great.
Well, look at those old ideas too, like IQ.
Yeah.
What is IQ? Please tell me that IQ is really accurate, because creativity cannot always be measured.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of people have heard how Einstein, you know, failed math.
Yeah.
Really?
All right, we got some questions, and then we always end with, you're going to tell us about projects you're working on. Other than, I mean, you've already named a few, so we'll have anything else. So we do call rapid fire.
Uh-oh.
Those are like quick ones, all right?
Okay.
We already know he's pulling for the Patriots.
All right, yeah. So we usually talk about it. So you got the Patriots
By 3.
by 3?
Yep.
So what's going to be the last 5 minutes of the game? What do you see playing out?
Well, I haven't gone that far,
Okay.
but I'd say the Patriots have to sack Darnold and prevent him from coming in to get the tie field goal or touchdown right at the end. Big interception. Boom.
He's calling it, man. He's calling a shot.
And by the way, Patriots had an interception against Seattle with Russell Wilson.
Yep.
Russell Wilson's father was my teammate on the baseball and football team in college. And that was the dumbest call ever with beast mode right there.
That's exactly what I said in real time. I'm like, what are they
what are they
doing?
Pete Carroll was a phenomenal coach for me for 1 year with the Jets. I love him to death. But
Got too cute on that one. Got too cute on that
Try to
one.
be too cute.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So what are you secretly great at?
Play drums.
Play
Oh,
drums?
I
that's
don't know
cool.
if I'm great at it, but I'm good at it.
That's
and
cool.
I dated Jessie Coulter for 10 years, the widow of Waylon Jennings, and sat in her a few times. And I actually got a picture I'll send to you from the bassist of the Arrowhead Stadium Band, who had me, I'm in my football pants and my T-shirt. It's 2.5 hours before the game, and I'd go out there and I'd walk around the field and jog a little bit, and they called me over and they'd heard I played drums, so I played drums. And he says,
Nice.
wherever my phone is, he says, I want you to read it. Hold on.
I love it.
He said, this is today. He says, I was pretty good. Smart man.
I love it.
It starts off, I was the bassist that played in the Chiefs thing.
He's playing the drum. We'll have to get a clip of this, and I can show it in post.
That's great.
So this is in the late 80s. Thought
Yep.
you'd enjoy a photo I took in there during the pregame warm-up. You came over and played drums. You sounded good, too. He's like, that's a full drum set, my man.
I
That's
know.
not like a little bango. That's a full drum set.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what happens when you play the drums. So, but I mean,
Well,
imagine you're at the
you're like-
stadium in a
I'm not
full
saying he
drum
plays
set,
the drum. He plays the drum set.
and I'm in my football gear, and I completely forgot
great.
about it. Sometimes I'd go. There's a lot of blues and jazz in Kansas City, and I'd go in and sit there. So that's probably not too well known.
Oh, that's.
I told Charles
good
Barkley,
one.
I'm a white guy with rhythm.
I like it.
Charles, don't be intimidated.
True that. You Charles talk a lot.
Well, when
Do you golf a lot?
I
You don't?
used to, I don't much anymore.
Charles is ridiculous. He wants to golf every day. If he
I
can.
know.
He's ridiculous. All right, this is a good one. A song you would never skip comes on. You're never skipping that song when it comes on the radio.
Oh gosh, almost anything from the Beatles. There's one I love right now by Gary Barlow called Back for Good. I love that one. You probably haven't heard of that one. I Promise You by NSYNC. Yes, it's a boys band. Okay? It's a beautiful song. I don't care.
Hey, John Jay's he likes all the boy bands. John Jay was here earlier.
Yeah, and I love
He rattled off
Backstreet
like 5 or
Boys.
6.
I love the Backstreet. I gave football in Kansas City when they were playing there to each member. And so during the performance, they gave me nice seats, and they pretended to be kicking a little bit more than they would, right?
Too funny.
They look down, they go. And the tall one with the mustache, good-looking guy, he's from Louisiana. He told me he kicked a 45-yard field goal in a state playoff game in the
Superdome?
The Superdome.
That's great. If you had 1 year off, what would you do? Where you don't have any responsibility?
I would live in Tuscany for 6 months, and then 6 months probably in Hawaii, although Hawaii's getting really, really busy.
Yeah.
But maybe, the South Pacific.
Okay. All right. Last one here. This is the one where you can tee it up. What's something you're currently excited about?
Well, I'm excited about it, and it may sound weird to people, but, I just feel like when you understand history and appreciate history and context, when you see what's happening right now in Iran, it's awful. It is the worst thing. And I was just working, and I'm a senior ambassador for Project Max. If you look up projectmax.club, it is through sport dedicated to end racism, anti-Semitism, intolerance, and hate. And there's a lot of that going on right now with people that just don't understand history to understand what's really going on. And I'm proud to work with Eric Rubin. We just spent a lot of time advocating for the October 7th hostages. I was baptized in the Sea of Galilee a year ago on New Year's Day by a converted Israeli Jew named Israel. And we were with the hostage families. Nama Levy was one. I wrote and did video things on Instagram, et cetera, to say, let's not forget them. And then you see what's happening in Iran, and a lot of what's happened to Israel is directly from Iran hosting terrorism around the world. And I don't think that's judgment. That's just a reality. And so I'm excited because through sport, we can say this is a better choice. Ending racism is a better choice. Ending anti-Semitism is a better choice. And my mother, there she was, as I mentioned earlier, to see what happened in the death camps and to pretend that it didn't happen. Learned ignorance is a very frightening thing. And when we get on social media and we see the same thing telling us, yes, it's true. Yes, it's true. And these are terrible people. We've got to do our own work. We've got to have an education system that teaches us how to think for ourselves. Yeah. And that's frightening to those that don't want us to think for ourselves. But that's what's happening in Iran. People are willing to give their lives. All these beautiful women. We were given a tour of the Kfar Aza kibbutz, where several hundred people were murdered, horribly murdered, not just murdered. And then the Nova Music Festival. They had, imagine, 367 poles with pictures of these beautiful women and men who were celebrating peace. Yeah. And a lot of the people that attacked the Kfar Aza kibbutz were Palestinians that the kibbutz people hired and employed and treated great. And because whatever culture has developed there, that culture of what's called nihilism, the idea that the best thing that can ever happen to me is to blow up this world, and myself included, you really come from venerating death. And I'm all about life. I think you guys are too. Yes, America is. Yeah. Israel is. And just the people in this world that want to live lives that really matter. And they're good people in the Muslim world that we have to figure it out. But unfortunately, a lot of people that, Nava Levy being one of them, was advocating, working with Palestinians, doing events with them, and then suddenly...
Yeah.
Now, she lived, God bless her, but we got a lot of work ahead, and it's really about what's the better choice.
Yeah. And Nick, I love what you do for humanity, the community, being here in Scottsdale and Phoenix. Tell us where people can find you outside of these projects. Their website, Instagram. What's the best
I
place?
dance at this club. No,
It's on the pole.
I'm a little goofy this way. You can find me at nicklowry.org, NICKLOWERY. You can Google Champions for the Homeless, Nick Lowery. There's some wonderful stories on there. You can go to championsforthehomeless.org. And that's great. And then you can, what I'd love to finish with is the website's called nicklowerybook.com. And that's my book coming out called Naked Alone with 80,000 People. And I just want to encourage you, wherever you are in your life, when you feel naked alone, just remember you're here for something special. And you just got to look and say, what are the unique gifts that I have? And I'm willing to dig in and stick with it till it makes sense. And you will be shocked at how much better you can be at anything in 2 years. You know, Tony Robbins became a friend, and he has a lot of great ideas. A lot of those things out there is you can turn your life around in 30 days, and there's truth to that and changing habits. But in 2 years, you can go from being cut 11 times to beating out the greatest kicker and then becoming the most accurate kicker in NFL history. And not only is that a frozen moment in time, I made it, but I went from 76% when I first qualified as most accurate to 80%, actually was 87% my last few years in the NFL. And all of us can get better, not just at physical things, but at that intuitive sense of connection with each other. And that's the thing that we miss the most, is we don't feel connected. Yeah. Yep. And that's where the good stuff is.
I appreciate that. When's the book coming out, by the way?
It's coming out in 6 weeks. The reason that I keep delaying it is because I've got some interviews with some of my teammates, and I just think I want to bring that sense of realism. Christian Okoye, Steve Fuller, who's the #1 pick, my good old friend from Charleston, South Carolina, and Hilton Head, and other players, because it is a unique thing. It's such a blessing to be a player in the NFL where you see each other naked in the locker room. You see each other do great things on the field. You see doing, big mistakes on the field, but you have that camaraderie that no one else really, there is a significant parallel with veterans that have, risked their lives. And I don't want to diminish that being so much bigger, but that feeling of being part of a great team. Marty Schottenheimer, Marv Levy, the great coaches I had. Tony Dungy was on one of our coaches, one of the great coaches ever. Bruce Arians, one of the great coaches ever. Bill Cowher. They were all coaches on the Kansas City Chiefs when I was there. And they all had their unique ways of being leaders. So that's what I want to talk about, is just all of us can be part of a great team.
Well, we have to get them back out when the book's out.
Yeah.
We'll bring you back. That's one of the benefits of having local influencers, people are doing great things for the community for our podcast, because we shoot here in Scottsdale. So everyone that's come on has something that's coming up. I'd love to have you come back on and talk about that when it's time.
I would love to. And I just kudos for Phoenix and Scottsdale. I think, especially with these new chip plants and the new economies, and there are no earthquakes here. And, I think Scottsdale and Phoenix are ready for some halcyon times, where we take on a leadership role in the country with incredible business climate and hopefully leadership in terms of how we treat other people too.
Love it. I love it. All right, that's a wrap with our man, Nick Lowery, Hall of Fame Chiefs. That's awesome. Thanks you so much for the time. Mike Lindstrom, Scott Lee signing off. Thanks for joining.